What's going on, everyone? My name is Nathan Olson, and I am very excited because today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite books, and that is The Law of One, The Raw Material. I hope to provide a little bit of an introduction today because this material can be rather dense, and then we can build off this in later videos. So The Law of One was a channeled book, and it consisted of 106 sessions and has been captured in 5 books total. This all began in January of 1981. The channeling group consisted of 3 people. This was Don Elkins, who was a professor in mechanical engineering and physics. He was the questioner. Then there was Carla Ruckert. She was a librarian, and she was actually the channel for this material, although she was in a trance during it, so she wouldn't know what she was saying until it was recited back to her afterwards. And finally, there was Jim McCarty. He was the scribe, and he is the last living member of this group today and still doing excellent work over at L&L Research. I'm sure you might have guessed who they channeled, and that of course was Ra. Ra is an advanced extraterrestrial civilization that originated on Venus. The unique thing about them is that they share what's called a social memory complex, which basically means they all share one mind. They know all of each other's past experiences and know everything about each other. I also think it is worth noting that Don and Carla had experience in this type of work. They had previously been in contact with other extraterrestrial civilizations. This helped lay the groundwork for the Ra contact. Now that we've gone over some introductory information, I wanted to show an example of common language that Ra uses, in case you aren't familiar with the material. This quote comes from question 1.1 and is asking Ra what their specific purpose is. I am Ra. We communicate now. We too have our place. We are not those of the love or of the light. We are those who are of the law of one. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized, the complexities are simplified, and the paradoxes have their solution. We are one. That is our nature and our purpose. We are old upon your planet and have served with varying degrees of success in transmitting the law of one, of unity, of singleness to your peoples. We have walked your earth. We have seen the faces of your peoples. This is not so with many of the entities of the Confederation. We found it was not efficacious. However, we then felt the great responsibility of staying in the capacity of removing the distortions and powers that had been given to the law of one. We will continue in this until your, shall we say, cycle is appropriately ended. If not this one, then the next. We are not a part of time, and thus are able to be with you in any of your times. So, I know that was a little bit of a long quote there, but I think it helps provide a good idea of who Ra is and shows that they sound rather intelligent. Not only this, but it does raise a few interesting questions. One of them being that when Ra claims they've walked our planet, well, as it turns out, that happened to be during the time of the Egyptians. We won't be looking into that as much today, but I do hope to look into a few of the other questions that came up from here, which would be, who is the Confederation? Our cycle is ending? And also, Ra claims not to be a part of time. These are curious. Well, coming up here, we're going to start looking at some of the common terms and definitions in the Law of One. First up, we have arguably the most complicated, and that is the one infinite creator. This can be attempted to be described as the infinity that makes up all there is. Or a bit more specifically, it is the focusing of infinity as a conscious principle, which is then known as intelligent infinity. However, the complication is that this pure, original, intelligent infinity does not translate into words, physics, or any measure of understanding according to Ra. From here, we have the Logos, which was created when intelligent infinity then became aware, which led to the focus of infinity into infinite energy, and this is then called the Logos or love. The Logos consists of a hierarchy of levels of creation. These levels could be laid out starting with the one primal Logos, which would create the universe. From here, you'd have the Logos that would create a galaxy, and then a sub-logos would be a star or a star system, then leading to a sub-sub-logos, would be a mind-body-spirit complex, and so on. These loci use the intelligent energy to create the natural laws and blueprints for how everything will evolve. They are not necessarily the physical manifestation, such as the star, galaxy, or universe, but rather the non-physical consciousness that creates these. Each of these logos are an expression or fractals of the whole, and therefore are all co-creators. Next up is the Confederation of Planets, or commonly referred to as just the Confederation. This is our local chapter, which Ra tells us is made up of approximately 53 civilizations that's comprised of approximately 500 planetary consciousnesses. The Confederation members are united through their pure and total dedication of service to the one infinite Creator. They offer a number of services to aid spiritual development. Next is the Veil, or Veil of Forgetting. This refers to a veil that's placed between the conscious and unconscious or deep mind. Basically, this means that while we're incarnate, as we currently are now, we forget all past memories and information from our previous incarnations and lifetimes. Next is mind-body-spirit complex. This is most basically a person. We then have service to others, which can be seen as the positive path of consciousness, while service to self is the negative path of consciousness. Distortions are anything that move away from undistorted unity. Catalyst is the stimulus that's created from suffering, difficulties, or struggles that provides the opportunity for growth. We then have polarity, which is contrast or two opposite sides. It becomes necessary to polarize towards either service to others or service to self in order for consciousness to evolve. The next term is harvest, and this refers to the ending of a density or cycle, which may then lead to graduation or ascension to the next density. Oh, and don't worry, we'll be exploring these densities a bit more closely here soon. We'll now look at space-time. This is what we experience now on Earth in our three-dimensional world, with one dimension in time that's a continuous flow. And then there's time-space, which is a bit more abstract. This is a continuous loop where all possibilities of past, present, and future happen at once. The best way I could describe this is picture a linear graph of past, present, and future, and then turn this vertical, so now everything is happening all at once in the present. Then there's teach, learn, and learn, teach. These are considered inverse terms, where to teach, learn is to be the teacher, and a student is the learned teacher. And finally, we have love light and light love. Love light is the power, it's the intelligent energy, where light love is the manifestation of this light that has been impressed with love. I think that's probably enough terms to go over for now. Please keep in mind, there's a lot more information to be explored on each of these terms, but I hope we're able to provide a basic understanding for now. Moving right along, we'll be looking at another fundamental concept of the raw material, and that is energy centers and densities. The energy centers are the same as what's commonly referred to as chakras, although Ra calls them rays. These rays in order from bottom to top go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. These 7 rays of consciousness process energy that comes through the bodily energy system. Each has unique characteristics. These energy centers can become blocked and imbalanced, but through disciplined work can also become crystallized, which allows higher amounts of energy to flow through them and generally assist the entity. We will see how these correlate with the densities here soon. Taking a brief look at Ra's spiritual philosophy of these energy centers, we start with the red ray, which is the foundation, and has to do with survival, safety, sexuality, and security. Moving on, we have the orange ray, which has to do with your personal identity and relation with the self. Yellow ray has to do with our identity in groups, and how we react or relate to others in the group. green ray has to do with universal love and acceptance. This is where we learn to give love without expectation of anything in return. Blue ray is the center of wisdom and communication, and involves how we relate with honesty towards others and the self. The indigo ray is the gateway to intelligent infinity, and is a very spiritual energy center for magical workings with infinite possibilities. And last is the violet ray, which is our vibratory essence, or readout of our energetic signature, and is our connection to the Creator. Densities refer to the level of vibration of particles, or denseness, within a being. So lower density beings would have a much slower vibration, whereas higher density beings would be much faster and much more dense. These densities are an example of something that's created by the Logos. This is an intelligent curriculum for how life will evolve. There are 7 densities that make up an octave, with the 8th forming the first of the next density, and so on, similar to a musical octave. We'll look at a few of the densities now. To start, we have first density. This is associated with the red ray and is the density of awareness. It is a state of physical manifestation in space-time and consists of the elements wind, water, fire, and earth. This density took approximately 2 billion years to progress through. Then there's second density. This is associated with the orange ray and is the density of growth. Second density is where biological life is starting with single-celled organisms and bacteria, which then evolve to plants and animals in the higher stages. This density is the longest and took approximately 4.6 billion years to progress through. Next we have third density, which is associated with the yellow ray and is the density of self-awareness and where consciousness of the spirit begins. This is where we find ourselves now as human beings. The unique thing with this density is that we must make what's considered the choice, which is as serious as it may sound, in order to progress. And that choice is between choosing the path of service to others or service to self to move to the next density. Third density is approximately 75,000 years and is the shortest of all the densities, but is also the most intense. We currently find ourselves at the end of this 75,000 year cycle. Fourth density is associated with the green ray and is the density of love and understanding. Fourth density entities continue along their chosen path to serve others or to serve the self. This density is where a social memory complex will form for entities of a like mind. Fourth density is said to be 100 times more harmonious than third, and takes approximately 30 million years to progress through. We then have fifth density, which is associated with the blue ray and is the density of light or wisdom, where wisdom becomes the focus and criteria for graduation. The unique thing with fifth density entities is that their body is made entirely of light, so they can consciously shape their physical form. Sixth density is associated with the indigo ray and is the density of unity. This is the density level of the Ra group. The goal is to balance the love of fourth density with the wisdom of fifth density. This is also where the negative service to self path ends and converges to the positive polarity to master the lessons of unity. The other unique thing with this density is it is also where entities turn back to become the higher self to previous incarnations while outside of space and time. Sixth density takes approximately 75 million years to progress through. We then have seventh density, which is associated with the violet ray and is the gateway density or density of foreverness. This is where we move into total harmony with the one infinite creator. And finally, there is eighth density, which is the coalescence of creation to form first density of the next creation. This can be seen as the creation of a central sun or new logos of a universe that uses its experiences of the social memory complex to form this new logos. Well, think we covered a decent amount of material for today. There's just so much information in the Law of One books that it was really difficult to decide what all to start with. I hope this helped provide a little bit of a baseline though, and something we can build off of in future videos. I look forward to getting into more details on metaphysics, cosmology, archetypes, healing, wanderers, and everything else that the Law of One has to offer. The last couple points I'd like to make is that the Law of One was written in a question and answer interview format. This was done because Ra explains it is of the utmost importance to maintain our free will, and therefore only specifically answer questions that were asked by the questioner. Another point was that this channeled communication was considered narrow band transmission. And what this means is that it's very difficult to channel Ra. But not only this, in the Book 5 commentary, the group discusses how Ra can only transmit timeless Law of One information and philosophy. They can't keep answering these transient questions or things that would change in a short term or wouldn't matter, such as conspiracy theories or who's going to win the Super Bowl this year or something. Ra could only hint at this in order to maintain the group's free will, but thankfully they seem to have caught on and geared their questions to maintain this narrowband transmission. I'd like to leave you now with two quotes. First one explaining a little more on the Law of One. The Law of One, though beyond the limitations of name, as you call vibratory sound complexes, may be approximated by stating that all things are one, that there is no polarity, no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. All is one, and that one is love light, light love, the infinite creator. And finally, I'll leave you with one last quote for today. This one made me feel a lot better after reading it, and I hope it'll do the same for you if you were a little confused or if this seemed like a lot of information to take in for today. Please let me know what you thought of the video. I look forward to doing more in the Law of One series. I hope to see you again soon. It is absolutely necessary that an entity consciously realize it does not understand in order for it to be harvestable. Understanding is not of this density.